Ya tikulandireni ndithu kuchokera kuno ku nyumba ya malamulo kumene ndithu tufuna tichitire umboni mwambo umenewu ndithu oyang'ana kuti nkhani yofufuza mmene ngozi idachitikira ku Chikangawa imene inatenga wachiwiri wa mtsogoleri wa dziko lino komanso anthu ena 8 kafukufuku ayende motani. Ine dzina langa ndi Alison Banda, koma kuno sindili ndekha, ndili ndi mzanga ndithu amene tikhale limodzi kuzukuta nkuona kuti kodi tichite motani.
Ine ndi Gift Kalonga, mukuonera ndi Luntha television, kuno ndi ku nyumba ya malamulo monga momwe mzanga wanenera. Posachedwa pomwepa akhale akuyamba kafukufuku uja. Ino ndi nthawi imene mwina mzanga utha ndichitira umboni, ndi nthawi imene amalawi takhala tikudikirira kuti kodi tizamve mvemvemve kuti kodi chinachitika ndi chani. Nde mwina wakamera utha kuwatembenuzira amalawi aone amene ayambirire kubwera mu komiti imene ndi Minister of Justice amene nawonso afuna kuperekera umboni pa nkhani imene ndi kufotokozerapo kuti kodi ku nkhani za malamulo zikuyenda bwanji. Mutakuona kuti akukalowa mu komiti imene mwina mzanga uthaso kuthirapo ndemanga ziwiri zitatu ndi mmene waonera kuno kuti kodi environment ikuoneka bwanji.
Chabwino kufika kuno ku nyumba ya malamulo ndithu zikuoneka kuti anthu ali ndi chidwi, makamaka onse amene akukhuzidwa posayedwa panda kumana ndithu ndi amene wotanya milandu manda amene akuoneka kuti ndi mtsogoleri wa komiti imeneyi. Ndakumana nawo mu mphindi zochepa zimene zapita apa, nawonso ndithu akonzeka kuti lowe mchipinda chimenechi apereke makamaka zimene iwo akudziwa. Nkhani yayikulu ndionena kuti mmene timakambira kuti nduna imene imayang'ana za malamulo mdziko muno nayonso yafika pano kuti ipereke makamaka malangizo amene boma limapereka pa nkhani yokhudzana ngati zimenezi. Koma chidwi cha anthu nkomafuna kumvetsetsa zonena kuti takhala inquiry siyoyamba. Inquiry ina idachitikapo. Nkhani njonena kuti anthu ambiri tikufuna closure yonena kuti timvetsetse kuti kodi wachiwiri wa mtsogoleri wa dziko lino wakale adatisiya motani, komanso osayiwala mudali former first lady mu ndege manager, komanso osayiwala ena akuluakulu a boma amene amagwira ntchito mboma. Chifukwa onse aja ndi kuti tikhoza kukamba kuti amagwira ntchito mboma, koma kwambiri mwina nkumakhala mchithunzithunzi chomaona kuti kwenikweni mwina masiku apitawa tinali kumsipe kupereka kapena kuonetsa chiliza cha malemu achilema, chifukwa tikudziwanso kuti wena ziliza zawo zamangidwa ndithu. Koma anthu ambiri mwina kumakhalabe ndi maganizo onena kuti kwenikweni tikhale ndi kulozha mmene ukuonera nkhani ikamafikira kumapeto, tikhale ndi kulozha yotani ndi mmene waonera mmene kulili kuno. Chifukwa kuno tisaname kwabwera akuluakulu, komanso kukuoneka kuti yayi zimene titenge kuno komanso zimene anthu akhala akuonera pakanema wa Luntha zikhale zinthu zonena kuti zitithandizire tipeze kulozha mmene ukuonera mmene tafikira kuno ndi mmene atmosphere ilili kuno. Tiyembekezetu zotani?
Ndingati kuti anthu ayembekezere kuti kunongo kuchitika zinthu zimene mwina akhala kuyembekezera. Chifukwa tikaonesesa apapa kwabwera anthu osiyanasiyana zikuonesa kuti fa inquiry inayamba kale. Lero tikungopitiriza komanso ndi tsiku mwina limene anthu athe kuonera, koma nzoti zinayamba kalekale. Anakafika ku Chikangawa, anayenda anakafika even ku Kobe Barracks, kukaona kuti zinthu zonse zinayenda bwanji. Nde chimene nganene nchona kuti akuyeneka akhale tcheru kuonera kuti kodi komiti imene ipeza zotani. Komanso mwina nkhani ya closure ndi nkhani ya perception kuti munthu akuganiza bwanji. Ndi mwina chimene ngapemphe nchona kuti amvesese bwino, chifukwa nthawi zina chimene chimachitika kumakhala kuvuta kuti zinthu zikumvesesa. Ngati munthu ukanika kumvesesa ndi pamene umatha kubwera ndi conclusion yako. Koma chimene ngapemphe nchona kuti amvesese bwino, komanso amvesesa bwino kuzera pa Luntha, chifukwa pamene tikhale tikusakatula bwinobwino kuti kodi inquiry imene ikuyenda bwanji. Koma mwina kungoperekako chithunzithunzi zikhalire kuno msiku la lero. Msiku la lero lachitatu akhale akulankhulana ndi Honorable Charles Muhango amene angodusa chaposa yuda moyo, amene wanda Minister of Justice, amene aifotokozere komiti imene ya inquiry kufotokoza kuti kodi nkhani za malamulo zinayenda bwanji, malamulo awo anasatidwa, chinachitika ndi chani. Fa dziko lino ndi dziko limayenda ndi malamulo. Nde ndifake aitana amenewa. Komanso masana kukubwera Dr. Justin Saidi amene ndi mlembi wamkulu wa president ndi nduna amene waso aonekereso ku komiti imeneyi. Kenako nthawi ya 12:30 anthu apita kukadya lunch, kenako tibwereranso nthawi kamakwana 2:00 pamene akhale akulankhulana ndi Mr. Charles Kasambabala amene waso akhala akulankhulana nawo. Kenako kumapeto alankhulana ndi Mr. Wapona Kita amene iso ndi lawyer nde akhale kuti akufotokozera kuti kodi kwenikweni nkhani za malamulo zimayenda bwanji, nde mwina mwachidule ndi mmene siku la lero likhalire.
Nkhani ndionena kuti ife akanema waluntha timayima pa mfundo za chilungamo kuonetsetsa kusiku nkonena kuti dziko la Malawi likhale nchithunzithunzi chabwinobwino lonena kuti yaye kodi tikuchokera kuti tikupita kuti kafukufuku amene mmene wayambira ife tamuyamba ndipo timalizitsa, komanso nkufuna kuonetsetsa kuti yaye ngati mufuna chilungamo mufuna tchutchutchu, ife we say we bring wisdom into your home, kupereka ndithu luntha loyenerera mnyumba mwanu. Ndipo osachedwapa kukhala ngati mwambo udziyamba pakadali pano ndi mwina tikhale tikupereka kwa anzathu kuti yaye ayambe kupereka zithunzithunzi za mkati mwe. Fata aona anduna amene wazamalamulo amhango apita, komanso aotanya milandu alowa, taona akuluakulu bena kuno afikaso kuphatikizapo mwina bena amene ali mwina makamaka kuonetsetsa kuti zonse ziye ndi mwadongosolo. Ndi mwina tikhale tikupereka posayedwa apa. Ine dzina langa ndi Alison Banda.
Ine ndi Gift Kalonga. Pitirizani kuonera Luntha Television komanso kusatira kuti kodi komiti ya inquiry ya ngozi imene ya ndege iyenda motani. Mwakoma nonse.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. My name is Joseph Manzi. I am the Deputy Clerk of Parliament, responsible for procedural services, and indeed I'm leading the secretariat that is supporting this committee. My colleagues are sitting to your left, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Walter Nyamilandu Manda, a member of Parliament from Sandy Southwest, and the chairman of the ad hoc committee that has been set up. So just for point of correction, the media will not take leave. This inquiry will be done openly. So the media, stay where you are. You're going to be with us throughout. Before we go any further, may we request that the Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs should take an oath.
I, Charles Chigondongo Muhango,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
by the Almighty God
by the Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Once again, Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, welcome to the hearing of the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee inquiring into the tragic aircraft accident of 10th June 2024 at Ntonga, which claimed the lives of the former Vice President, Dr. Saulos Klaus Chilima, and 8 others. The committee, as you are aware, was established by a resolution of Parliament to conduct a thorough, independent and transparent investigation. Our mandate is to conduct a fresh inquiry with a view to establishing facts, understanding what happened, and making recommendations to Parliament in the interest of truth, clarity, accountability, and the prevention of future tragedies. The objective of us summoning you, Honorable Minister of Justice, this morning is to enlighten the committee on the gaps, inconsistencies, and irregularities that government had identified, necessitating a fresh inquiry by Parliament. These hearings will be conducted in accordance with the standing orders of Parliament and the laws of Malawi. Committee members will ask questions to witnesses who are obliged to respond accordingly. I remind you, Honourable Minister, that you are protected by Parliament for the evidence you're going to give in good faith. As per oath that you have sworn here in Parliament a few minutes ago, you are required to answer questions truthfully and fully. Honourable members of the Ad hoc Committee will now proceed with asking you the relevant questions after you have explained and enlightened to us the gaps and inconsistencies, any irregularities and anomalies that you had identified that have led to the formation and establishment of the Commission of Inquiry. So I hand over to you, Honourable Minister, that you may begin explaining the reasons why the Ad hoc Committee was set up to inquire into the aircraft crash that happened at Ntungwa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the Ad hoc Committee. Let me also thank the entire membership of the committee for inviting me to testify and speak to the committee this morning. I deeply appreciate the honor that you have granted to me to come and speak to the committee. I don't take it for granted. Chairperson and members of the committee, when I received the invitation, it asked me if I could put in writing my responses as well. I want to say that for consistency's sake, because I'm the one who was tasked by His Excellency the President, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, State President of the Republic of Malawi, as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, to review the reports which were made available to me and make recommendations to His Excellency for further direction on this matter. For that reason, and for me to be consistent in what I advise His Excellency the President, I will also give the same advice, the same findings that I gave to the President to this committee for your further action. You will recall, Honorable Chairperson and members, that I was also asked by members of Parliament, in particular the Member of Parliament for Mwaza Central and the Member of Parliament for Lilongwe Mpeno, if my memory serves me well, under Standing Order 69, when Parliament was in session, and I did respond in the chamber, and my responses were documented and part of the answers. For purposes of consistency and to give respect and decorum to this committee, I also refer to the hazards on what I said in response to the questions which were put to me in the chamber. And the responses which I gave are the same that informed His Excellency the President, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, to request the Right Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly to impanel an ad hoc committee to investigate further into the matters of the plane crash that happened on the 10th June 2024 at Ntungwa. With your permission, therefore, Chairperson, if you may permit me to refer to the report which I submitted to His Excellency the President, as well as to refresh my memory on what I said in Parliament when I was asked. I should say, Honorable Chairperson and all members, that I am not a witness of facts, in that I may not say in my capacity as Minister of Justice that I saw this happen or I witnessed this. I'm not that kind of witness. I believe I'm a witness who's come to set the stage to advise this committee on what informed His Excellency the President to impanel or indeed request the August House or Parliament to go into this inquiry that your committee is doing from this morning. I believe that's the purpose that I am here. And if that is my understanding, Honorable Chairperson and members, with your permission, I may not have to go word for word in what I said, but with your permission, I may have to go and summarize my findings and what informed my findings to advise Excellency the President on the way forward, whether or not to reopen the inquiry into the plane crash which killed the former Vice President, late Right Honorable Saulos Klaus Chilima, and 8 others at Ntungwa in Chikangawa on 10th June 2024. Let me confirm to this committee, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, that I reviewed the 3 main reports into the crash which happened on the 10th June 2024. Let me also at the outset mention the fact that I was informed when I was reviewing the 3 reports that there were other reports and other documentation or material which were not made available to me. For example, I can cite 2 of the materials that I was informed. I was informed that there was a report which was confidential by the MDF board. I was also informed that there was another report by the Civil Aviation. Let me state to this committee, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, that these 2 reports were not made privy to me. I was also made aware when I was going through the report of the Commission of the Inquiry set up by the former President, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera. In that report, I read that the witnesses who testified, some of them brought other materials. Those materials, I'm not privy to them. So my findings and my analysis concentrated on 3 reports, and these reports are, number 1, the interim report issued by what was called the BFU. BFU is a German organization called Bundesstelle für Flugverramtechtung. That's German. Let me say that I'm not very good in German, so my pronunciation may not be the best pronunciation. Therefore, I'll just refer it to as the BFU, but let me say that I spit a little bit of German. The second report, Honorable Chairperson, was the report of the Commission of Inquiry, Presidential Commission of Inquiry, set up by His Excellency, the former President, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera. I also reviewed that report extensively. Finally, Honorable Chair, I also did review the final report of the BFU. For purposes of factual background, I thought necessary, Chairperson, that I should give a little bit of a detail from the report of the BFU for factual consistency, because the facts that come in the interim BFU report will almost be the same that informed all the three reports: the interim report of the BFU, the report of the Commission of Inquiry, and the final report of the BFU. Let me also say that if you go to the report of the Commission of Inquiry, apart from the facts of the flight and the technical aspects, the Commission of Inquiry set up by the former President also looked at other witnesses on the ground, both at Kia and at Mzuzu Airport, which was the destination of that fateful flight. But as I said earlier on, Honorable Chairperson, I thought that it would be important for this committee to understand what informed my findings, to have a little bit of detail of what factual background was contained in the BFU report in terms of how the flight started, how it was prepared, up to the time of the quote-unquote the crash at around the 16 minutes past 10 on 10th June 2024. I thought those facts are very important so that we can link those facts to the Commission of Inquiry report as well as to the final report to understand what informed my opinion on those three reports. With your permission, Honorable Chair, if that methodology for this morning is correct or is acceptable, I'm prepared to give a detail of some background that was contained in the interim report. With your permission, Chair.
Honorable Minister, we can proceed on that basis.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair and honorable members, the facts that came from the BFU interim report that this committee may wish to have in detail are as follows. 1. The interim report by the BFU was a very brief report. It had only 19 pages. And these 19 pages included the abstract, the factual information, personal information of the pilots, the aircraft information, meteorological information, Malawi airspace structure, radio communications, flight recorder, wreckage, and impact information. It also had a little bit of aspects on the survival aspects and safety, and made safety recommendations in the appendix of the report. My reading of the BF report interim showed that the BFU relied on the testimonies of the flight information officer at Muzuzu Airport and the controller at Kamuzu International Airport in Lilongwe. The BFU also used its own analysis of the GPS data, which was tracking the aircraft, to come up with its interim report. Let me mention that I'm referring to the GPS data as being the analysis deliberately. Why? Because as you will see or hear later on in the report, the aircraft did not have, according to the BF report, certain technical components that could track the aircraft in terms of the radar, cockpit voice recorder. Those things the aircraft didn't have, according to the BF report. Therefore, the BFU relied on the GPS data to track the aircraft from Kia to the point of impact at 16 minutes past 10 hours on the 10th June 2024. Honorable Chairperson and members, as regards the aircraft information, the BFU interim report simply stated that the airplane had a certificate of registration by the Republic of Malawi and was operated by the Malawi Air Force. You can see that at page number 7 of the interim report. Let me say, Honorable Chair, that earlier on, your committee had requested me to finish to your committee the 3 reports, which I did. I hope your committee has had a look at these 3 reports. However, I have my raw reports with my notes here with me. But these ones contain my handwritten notes when I was reviewing those reports. But the clean ones I handed over to the committee much earlier. The interim report did not include the aspects of airworthiness of the aircraft. However, using the GPS data analysis, the BFU interim report gave a detailed history of the flight on the fateful day, especially after departing Kamuzu International Airport. The BFU report noted and recorded that the aircraft took off at 09:16 hours, 16 minutes past 9 in the morning. And it took off from runway number 14 at Kia. I want the committee to note the departure time, 16 minutes past 9 in the morning on 10th June 2024, and it departed from runway number 14. The BFU did not indicate the estimated time of arrival at the destination aerodrome at Muzuzu. However, it said that at 17 minutes past 9, the aircraft began a left-hand turn, and 2 minutes later, the aircraft ended in a northern direction turn. That was within a minute or 2 of its departure. According to the controller at Kia, the flight crew received clearance for communication to FL90. But later, the flight crew requested to maintain 7,000 feet AMSL. These are technical terms, meaning the height above sea level. The GPS data showed that at 23 minutes past 9, the plane reached a cruising level of about 7,300 feet above sea level. it had been cleared to cruise at 7,000 feet above sea level, but at the 23 minutes past 9, it reached 7,300 feet above the sea level. Those heights are very important later on as to what the plane will be doing. So please, members of the committee, take note of the heights. The flight crew informed the controller that they would reach reporting NASA at 9:23. That's where now they say we are now level, we are now going straight. They're going to reporting NASA in their technical. And the airport of destination approximately at 5 minutes past 10. So they were reporting that once they reach reporting NASA at 9:32, they would reach the destination airport, the aerodrome at Mzuzu, at 5 minutes past 10 in the morning on that morning. According to the GPS data, the airplane was flying north, and at 9:32 hours, it was 3 nautical miles west of West Point, NASA, at about 7,500 feet above sea level. 7,500 feet above sea level. At 9:37 hours, the airplane began to climb, and within 3 minutes, it reached about 8,600 feet above sea level. At about 9:44 hours, the airplane entered descent. At 9:50 hours, at about 1.5 nautical miles northwest of the village Fumbawowa, somewhere in Mzimba, Fumbawowa village, it began to deviate. It began to deviate from the direct course to the air. The airplane began to climb again. With a track of about 150 degrees, the left-hand turn ended, and the airplane turned right in western direction, and at 9:55 hours, it reached 8,100 feet above sea level. I want you to understand the maneuvers that are taking place there according to BFU. At 9:56, the aircraft flew a full left-hand turn, like going round and round. Continued in a southwest direction, and at about 9:58 hours, it passed the settlement called Bokosi Kunga. 1 minute later, it began to turn right, and within 1 minute, it reached an eastern heading, then turned to a northeastern heading. The aircraft descended again to an altitude of about 5,400 feet, about 460 feet AGL. AGL means above the ground, not above sea level, but above ground level. So it went as low as 460 feet AGL. At approximately 2 nautical miles south of a wood industry plant in the forest, the airplane turned left in a climb to the north. Between 6 minutes past 10 and 9 minutes past 10, about 3 nautical miles northwest of Chikangawa city, the aircraft flew full left turns, not just one, full left turns, with a radius of about 600 meters. And while doing so, it was between above ground level, 500 feet and 200 feet above ground level. In my understanding, my layman's understanding, it came very close to the ground. At about 9 minutes past 10, the airplane continued the flight with various headings in the northeastern direction and then descended to 185 feet above ground level, below 200, 185 feet above ground level, and then began to climb again. At about 12 minutes past 10, mark that time, 12 minutes past 10, the airplane was about 25 nautical miles southwest of Muzuzu Airport, at about 7,000 feet above sea level, which is now about 1,500 feet above ground level. It has gone up again. 2 minutes later, it reached about 2,200 feet above ground level. Then it turned in a northern direction and descended again. At about 15 minutes past 10, quarter past 10, the airplane turned left in a northwest direction. Finally, it had a track of about 284 degrees, and at 16 minutes past 10, the airplane impacted the ground. I repeat, finally, it had a track of about 284 degrees, and at 16 minutes past 10, the airplane impacted the ground. The interim BFU report did not make any findings as to why the pilots deviated from the direct course to the airport of destination. However, it was the flight information officer at Muzuzu Airport who told the BFU that since the flight crew had not reported in about 9:50 hours, he contacted them by radio to no avail. And 5 minutes later, he tried again, but both attempts failed. At 5 minutes past 10, the flight information officer at Muzuzu called the Lilongwe Air Control Center to have the estimated arrival time of the airplane confirmed again. At 12 minutes past 10, the flight crew had then reported in on the Muzuzu Tower frequency and informed the Air Control Information Officer that they were 20 nautical miles away and intended an approach from the north. The flight information officer communicated the weather information and that runway 17 was in use in Muzuzu. He also informed them about his observation that the east, south, and west of the airport visibility was about 5 kilometers. The flight crew had wanted to fly towards Ekwendeni to see if the weather conditions were better there. At 17 minutes past 10, he had contacted the flight crew by radio to find out about their attitude, but he did not receive any answer. Mind you, by 16 past 10, the aircraft had impacted the ground, and the controller was calling them at 17 minutes past 10, and there was no answer. It should be observed that the flight was supposed to land at Muzuzu at about 2 minutes past 10. It had about 45 minutes to get to Muzuzu, so it was supposed to land at 2 minutes past 10. You can confirm this information at page number 25 of the Commission of Report Inquiry set by the former President, His Excellency Dr. Chakwera. It was 10 minutes after the estimated time of arrival that the flight information officer at Muzuzu claimed to have last contacted the flight at 12 minutes past 10. what I was observing there is that the aircraft should have touched down in Mzuzu at 2 minutes past 10. The information officer is contacting them at 12 minutes past 10, 10 minutes away from the touchdown time. I hope you are observing that one. And at this time, the crew said that they were 20 nautical miles away from the destination airport at Mzuzu. By this time, the airplane had already deviated from the direct course of the destination point, and it has already performed those strange maneuvers. It has already, by the time the air information controller at Mzuzu is contacting them last at 12 minutes past 10, the pilots have already embarked on those strange maneuvers. It is surprising to me that when the flight crew finally contacted the flight information officer at Mzuzu at 12 minutes past 10, the flight crew never raised any alarm about what they were going through in their approach to Mzuzu, as if everything on that flight was just normal. They just tell the flight controller that, no, we are trying to enter from Mzuzu. They are not raising any alarm. So the BFU had also asked the German meteorological service provider to compile a meteorological expert opinion concerning the weather conditions along the flight path, and in particular in the area of the accident site. However, at the time of publication of the interim report, this data had not been made available to the BFU. What I'm saying is that the BFU, for them to make a finding on the weather, they had asked their German experts, the German meteorological experts, to give them the weather opinion. But by the time they were writing the interim report, which I'm referring to, the German experts, meteorological experts, had not yet submitted their weather report. Mark that one. According to the interim BFU report, the airplane was not equipped with a cockpit voice recorder, or it was not equipped with a flight data recorder because, and I'm quoting, because these recording devices were not required by the relevant aviation regulations. End of quote. So the BFU is saying we've not found these things on the plane because they are not required by the aviation authorities to be on the plane. That's the reason they are giving. In the interim report, BFU did not state whether or not these recording devices were never fitted at all on this aircraft at procurement, or that they were removed afterwards. Or whether such recording devices had been removed afterwards. And if so, when were the recording devices removed from this aircraft? The BFU simply stated that, and I quote, these recording devices were not required by the relevant aviation regulations, end of quote. The interim report, Honorable Chair, further stated that Air Navigation Service in Lilongwe had no recorded radar data of the two flights on the day of the accident. The two flights, they are referring to the flight in the morning that departed Mzuzu, because it had gone to Mzuzu the previous night to leave the remains of late Raf Kasambara, and spent a night there. and it left Muzuzu to come to Lilongwe to pick the vice president that is in Tuareg. So there are 2 flights on that particular day. The inward bound from Muzuzu to Lilongwe, and the outward bound from Lilongwe back to Muzuzu. Those 2 flights. It says, the report by BFU says, the air navigation services in Lilongwe had no recorded radar data of the 2 flights on that particular day. That is from Lilongwe from Muzuzu to Lilongwe, and the fateful flight from Lilongwe to Muzuzu. No explanation has been offered for the absence of the recorded radar data on this fateful day for both flights. The interim report by BFU also stated that the navigation system, what they call the Garmin Area 760, Garmin Area 760, had recorded position data, GPS position and attitude above time. The recording of the accident flight began at 08:46:48 seconds. That is 08:46 hours, 48 seconds. That's when the recording started for that flight. That's the GPS position. At the apron of the departure airport, and it ended at 14 seconds, 16 minutes past 10. Mind you, the aeroplane impacted the ground at 16 minutes past 10. So the GPS was recording from around 46 minutes or 14 minutes to 9, and it only stopped recording at 16 minutes past, of course 14 seconds later. Because that time I think the plane stopped, or the engine stopped, whatever. And the stopping time was placed within the vicinity of the accident site. So the data, the radar, the GPS data picked the plane all the way to the vicinity of the crash at around 16 minutes past 10 for the 14 seconds later. And the GPS automatically switched off at 2:45 in the afternoon on that day. It completely switched off. The interim report by BFU also reported that a day after the accident, search and rescue personnel recovered bodies of the deceased passengers and crew from the wreckage site, and that in doing so, wreckage parts were moved from their original positions. The accident site was only cordoned off and secured after recovering the deceased bodies. This is a matter of importance, because when there's wreckage, it's supposed to be cordoned off. But the BF report says by the time they were cordoning off, pieces of the wreckage had been moved to secure the bodies of the deceased persons and crew. The interim BFU report also stated that the accident site was located about 34 kilometers, which is about 18 nautical miles southwest of the arrival point in Chikangawa Forest in Nkata Bay district in northern Malawi. The airplane crashed into the slope of a hill and about 2 kilometers east of a highway M1 road, and about 700 meters south of a settlement. This one you can see at page 11 of the interim BF report. So the aircraft, according to BFU, crashed about 700 meters away from a settlement where there were people there. The interim report also stated that the BFU removed and seized the warning and caution panel indicator and the Garmin Area 760 in order to read this out at their BFU lab in Germany. The emergency locator transmitter ELT-10 was mounted in the cabin of the left fuselage side next to the door. The BFU examined the ELT-10 and determined that the ELT-10 was not functioning because the battery expired in 2004. The Malawi Air Force stated that for such devices, there were no spare parts and no budget for them to acquire a new battery. Let me repeat. The BFU stated that the emergency locator transmitter ELT-10 was mounted in the cabin of the fuselage. The BFU examined the ELT-10 and determined that the ELT-10 was not functioning because the battery had expired in 2004 rather. The Malawi Air Force had explained that such devices, there were no spares and there was no budget for them to buy the new EL-10. The report further indicated that the emergency locator panel was found in the wreckage. The switch in the cockpit was in position ARM, while the one on the ELT itself was in the position off. So there's the same switch on the panel, it is on ARM, but on the ELT, it is switched off. Those who know the technicalities, they will know what that means. The interim BF report also cited the events of the day before the accident. It stated that on 9th June 2024, the day before the accident, the flight crew went on duty at the airbase in Zomba at around midday. Then instructions were issued to fly the mortal remains of a person who had died 2 days earlier and some of his family members from Chileka in Blantyre to Mzuzu. The burial was to take place the next day. The deceased persons referred to, in my opinion, are the remains of late Ralph Kasambara SC, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, who had died in Lilongwe on or about 7th June 2024, and whose remains were taken to Blantyre on 8th June 2024 and were flown from Mzuzu to Mzuzu in the same Donia 228202K on 9th June 2024. Having flown the remains of late Ralph Kasambara SC from Blantyre to Mzuzu on 9th June 2024, the crew spent a night at Mzuzu Hotel in Mzuzu. In the evening of 9th June 2024, the flight crew received the order to pick the Vice President of the Republic of Malawi and his entourage the following day in Lilongwe and fly them to Mzuzu, and immediately after the burial to fly the Vice President back to Lilongwe so that the Vice President should see off the President who was to leave for a trip abroad that day. A thorough analysis of the interim BFU report shows that in its interim report, the BFU did not make any findings as to the probable cause of the accident. It is particularly important, Honorable Chair and members, to note that apart from citing the weather conditions at Kamuzu International Airport in Lilongwe and at Mzuzu Airport, the BFU had not received the expert opinion from the German meteorological service provider, which BFU had asked to compile meteorological expert opinion concerning the weather conditions along the flight path and in particular in the area of the accident site. It is also important, Honorable Chairman, to observe that the BFU did not state the source of information to justify its conclusion that the airplane was not equipped with a cockpit voice recorder or indeed a flight recorder. The interim report simply stated that these recording devices were not required by relevant aviation regulations in Malawi. The BFU did not cite the said relevant aviation regulations nor the version of the said aviation regulations. At the publication of the interim report, the BFU simply made two recommendations. The first recommendation was that the Minister of Defense should ensure that the aircrafts of the Malawi Air Force transporting persons should be equipped with functional emergency locator and transmitter. The second recommendation was that the Minister of Transport should ensure that up-to-date information concerning radio and navigation aids in Malawi is available to aircraft crew at all times, and that the Department of Civil Aviation should check the proper functioning of the radio navigation aids and update the respective information in Malawi Aeronautical Information Publication, AIP. Honorable Chairperson and members, my analysis of the interim BFU report told me that the BFU report in its interim report was not conclusive on the cause of the accident on 10th June 2024. The interim report was published before a detailed analysis of the material facts. At the time of publication of the interim report, the BFU had not received the expert opinion from the German meteorological service provider, which BFU had asked to compile meteorological expert opinion concerning the weather conditions along the flight path and in particular in the area of the accident site. More particularly, Honorable Chairperson and members, the interim report did not attribute the air crash to bad weather. That's the interim report. By reason of the foregoing issues, therefore, Honorable Chairperson and the members, the interim report by the BFU was released in anticipation of gathering further facts for further analysis of those facts to determine the cause of the crash of the Donia 228-202K, which killed the Vice President of the Republic of Malawi and 8 other passengers, including 3 crew members on 10th June 2024. On that score alone, Honorable Chairperson and the members of the ad hoc committee, I found the interim report to be wanting. It was not conclusive. It can't bring closure to the accident. Therefore, in my capacity as Minister of Justice, I went to the second report, which was the report of the Commission of Inquiry. On the Commission of the Report Inquiry, Honorable Chairperson, it is very extensive. I therefore do not want to belabor your committee, Honorable Chair, with the detailed factual and evidence received. Allow me, if it pleases you, Honorable Chair and members of the committee, to go to my analysis of my findings of that report. Chairperson, with your permission.
You may proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Chairperson and honorable members, I had a detailed reading and analysis of the report of the Commission of Inquiry. For purposes of consistency, let me mention the fact that the Commission of Inquiry was set up by the former President, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, 4 months after the accident. The Commission of Inquiry, His Excellency the former President, gave the Commission of Inquiry a period of 30 days within which to issue its report. Let me mention that the my reading of the Commission of the Inquiry report shows that the Commission asked for extra time because they didn't have the time within 30 days to complete their investigations. The Commission was appointed to do the following things. These were the terms of reference. I want to have this in details for obvious reasons, because one of my findings was that the terms of reference given to the Commission were unduly narrow. So because of that, I thought the chairperson, with your permission, if I could just read the terms of reference which were given to the Commission that time. The Commission was appointed to do the following things: conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances prior to, during, and after the aircraft accident, from the time it departed from Kamuzu International Airport until it was discovered on 11th June 2024. My understanding of this opening statement is that the Commission is being tasked to inquire into what happened prior to the flight, during the flight, and after the flight, but limited to the time that it departed Kia to the time it was discovered. That's my understanding. Don't go beyond what happened earlier than the time it departed. And it says specifically inquire into the following: A, an inquiry into the manner and procedure of procuring the use of the aircraft. B, or 2, the state and performance of the aircraft the previous day and on the day of the aircraft accident, the status, condition, experience, and capacity of the crew operating the aircraft. 3, the aviation protocols followed at the point of departure and expected destination. 5, any communication between the passengers on board the aircraft and any persons on the ground during the flight. 5, notification of the missing aircraft when the Air Force was informed and the course and order of events taken in response. 6, escalation of the notification of the missing aircraft to His Excellency the President, what was communicated to the President, and what directives the President gave. 7, the search and rescue efforts from commencement through the area of focus, the point of discovering the wreckage of the aircraft on 11th June 2024. 8, consider, determine, and inquire into all aspects surrounding the death of the late Vice President and 8 others, including but not limited to establishing the cause of death for all persons on board the aircraft and the survivability of the accident. 9, consider, determine, and inquire into the circumstances and order of events to every extent possible, the events and the role and activities of various individuals between 10th and 11th June 2024, and make such inquiry and such findings and recommendations as are incidental and connected with the aircraft accident on 10th June 2024. Having analyzed the evidence that was received and how the Commission dealt with the evidence, I came to the following conclusions and findings. Just a moment, Honorable Chair. I just want to go to my findings.
You can take your time.
Yes, please. Let me start from the following findings. Honorable Chair and members, my reading of the and analysis of the Commission's report shows that the Commission began with the events leading to the aircraft accident from the funeral of late Raf Kasambara, a renowned private practice lawyer and former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, who passed on away on 7th June 2024 in Lilongwe. The Commission provided details of why and how the government was involved in the funeral of Mr. Raf Kasambara, SC deceased, including the protocols followed to procure the Donia aircraft to transport the remains of late Raf Kasambara, SC, from Blantyre to Mzuzu on 9th June 2024. The Commission also had evidence of how the late Vice President was delegated to represent the President at the funeral of late Mr. Raf Kasambara, SC. On this particular point, the Commission had and considered evidence of how Honorable Richard Chimwendo Banda ended up not representing the President at the funeral of late Mr. Raf Kasambara, SC, and how Honorable Chimwendo Banda failed to board the aircraft on 10th June 2024. The Commission had and considered the evidence about the journey of the Donia from Kamuzu International Airport to Mzuzu. The Commission had evidence that the aircraft was scheduled to depart from Kia to Mzuzu at 9 hours with an estimated flying time of 45 minutes, but that instead the aircraft had departed at 17 minutes past 9 that morning. The Commission also had evidence that upon takeoff, the aircraft was cleared to climb to 9,000 feet above sea level, but that upon reaching 7,000 feet, the pilots requested to maintain the altitude of about 7,000 feet because of en route weather, according to the report of the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission had evidence that because of the low altitude, mobile phones were able to connect with their respective telecommunication networks, towers, on the ground at different points during the flight. This enabled some passengers in the aircraft to establish data communication with people on the ground at certain times during the flight. In turn, this also allowed tracking of the movement and the route of the aircraft from Kia on its way to Mzuzu Airport. You can see that those particulars at pages 25 and up to 73 of the report of the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission had that evidence and considered the interim report by the BFU and determined that at some point the aircraft made a full circle orbit before performing two more full 360 degrees turns while descending between 500 feet and 200 feet above ground level, AGL. See pages 78 of the Commission of Report. However, upon considering the evidence received from witnesses and upon considering other reports on the air crash, the Commission inferred that the maneuvers performed by the crew were not a result of any emergency. The Commission had the view that these maneuvers, and I'm quoting, these maneuvers were performed by the flight crew to stay away and out of instruments meteorological conditions, IMC, in order to continue the flight under visual meteorological conditions, VMC. That would facilitate a visual approach and subsequent landing at the destination air drone. You can see that, Honorable Chair, at page 79 of the report of the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission also observed that if the aircraft had continued to fly at altitude of 7,000 feet, it would have arrived over Mzuzu approach area above the layer of overcast clouds, which could have rendered a descent into Mzuzu difficult, considering that there was no instrument and approach aids at Mzuzu Airport. The Commission further observed that at the point of impact, the landing gear of the aircraft was down, and the flap selection was at position 1. The Commission was unable to conclude why the crew configured their aircraft in this manner when they did not have the destination aerodrome in sight. Mind you, they were supposed to use the visual approach. Yet, at the time of impact, the Commission is saying the landing gear of the aircraft was down. Yet, they had no visual of the destination aircraft. You can see this at page 79 of the Commission of Inquiry report. Yet, the Commission had earlier on found that at the time the crew spoke with the Mzuzu control tower at about 12 minutes past 10 to inform them about the approach to Mzuzu, there was no indication from the crew that the aircraft had developed problems or any fault. There was also no indication that the pilots were under any stress, pressure, or anxiety. Mind you, Honorable Chair and the Honorable Members, by 10 minutes, 2 minutes or 12 minutes past 10, the aircraft had performed very strange maneuvers. Yet, when they are speaking last to the tower in Mzuzu, the Commission of Report accepts the position that they were not under stress, there was no pressure, and there was no anxiety from the pilots. More particularly, the Commission heard the testimony of Mr. Moyo from Mzuzu Airport Tower that at 12 minutes past 10, the aircraft had established radio communication with Mzuzu Airport Tower. And the crew informed Mr. Moyo that they were 20 nautical miles, about 37 kilometers north of Mzuzu Airport. It was also the evidence of Mr. Moyo that the pilot on the radio responded that they would go and then come through Ekwendeni. You can see page 27 of the Commission of Report Inquiry, or Commission of Inquiry report. The above matters are not consistent in my view with the finding of the Commission at the time the crew spoke with the Mzuzu Tower at 12 minutes past 10 to inform them about the approach to Mzuzu Airport. There was no indication from the crew that the aircraft had developed a problem or a fault, and there was no indication that the pilots were under any stress or anxiety. Clear in my mind, when the pilots had performed these strange maneuvers, in my opinion, they should have expressed concern to when they established contact with the Mzuzu Tower at 12 minutes past 10. But according to the Commission report, they were very calm, as if nothing has happened. Furthermore, the Commission had evidence of 2 communications via WhatsApp and Telegram between the passengers in the aircraft during the flight, including the reported text message from late Inspector Chimaneni to Mrs. Winnie Nyondo at about 10 minutes past 10. Mark the time, 10 minutes past 10, which text message said, and I quote, "Too much turbulence." You can see that, Honorable Chair, at page 74 of the report of the Commission of Inquiry. Again, Honorable Chair and members, reflect back on what I said on the BFU, that the strange maneuvers start from around 10:09:50 to around 10:15 or 10:12 that morning. And mind you, the landing gear by 10:12 or 10:16, the landing gear is on down. And Mr. Late Chimaneni is texting Winnie Nyondo at 10 minutes past 10. This is 6 minutes before impact. And he only says too much turbulence on this flight. Maybe he's a passenger, he doesn't know what's happening. The above evidence is not consistent, in my opinion, Honorable Chair and members, with the finding by the Commission of Inquiry that there was no indication that the pilot was under any stress or anxiety. The Commission should have further interrogated the above inconsistencies in evidence, which showed that the crew did not declare an emergency at 12 minutes past 10 hours when they contacted Mzuzu Airport. And after performing very strange maneuvers where the aircraft was in some places climbing up and in other places descending down, yet it was several miles away from the destination airport at Mzuzu, and at the same time, the crew had already lowered the landing gear of the aircraft and put the flap selection to position 1, even before having sight of the destination air drone. You can verify that in the report at page 79 of the Commission of Inquiry report. It appears that the Commission never considered these matters worth of any further investigations. It should also be noted that the President had delegated the late Vice President to represent the President at the funeral of late Kasambara, SC in Katabe on 10th June 2024. Let me take that again, Honorable Chair. This committee should note that His Excellency the former President, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, had delegated the Vice President, late Dr. Klaus Chilima, to represent the President at the funeral of late Laf Kasambara in Katabe on 10th June 2024. This was acknowledged by the Commission of Inquiry at page 15 of the report. It should be further noted that the aircraft was given a take-off clearance from runway 14 at Kia, and it was airborne at 17 minutes past 9. And the estimated time of arrival at Mzuzu Airport was at 2 minutes past 10. Mark those times. The aircraft was cleared to take off around, and it took off around 17 minutes past 9. And it was estimated to arrive at Mzuzu Airport at 2 minutes past 10. And it is carrying the Vice President of the country, who is going to represent the President of the country at the funeral of Raf Kasambara in Nkatabe, not in Mzuzu, in Nkatabe. It was also evidence of Mr. Moyo that he had last spoken to the crew at 12 minutes past 10, when the aircraft established radio communication or contact with Mzuzu Airport. You can verify that at page 27 of the Commission of Inquiry report. Yet, according to the information before the Commission of Inquiry, the funeral ceremony of late Raf Kasambara in Nkatabe started at 10 o'clock. And those present were actually told that the late Vice President had been delayed. I want to repeat that one, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. This aircraft is carrying the late Vice President, who has been delegated by the State President to represent him at the funeral of late Kasambara in Nkatabe, not in Mzuzu. It is scheduled to arrive in Mzuzu at 2 minutes past 10. In my opinion, Nkatabe and Mzuzu are about 45 kilometers apart. Therefore, the Vice President was supposed to be driven from Mzuzu to Nkatabe for at least 30 minutes, which means he should have, was expected in Mzuzu, in Nkatabe rather, at around 11:15, not earlier than that. Yet, the Commission of Inquiry states that the funeral ceremony of Raf Kasambara is starting at 10 o'clock. Why? Because the people present there are told that the vice president has been delayed. However, how could anyone have announced that the vice president was delayed at 10 o'clock in Katabe, when the vice president's arrival in Mzuzu was at 10:02, and he was supposed to drive from Mzuzu to Katabe for at least 45 minutes. But somebody at the funeral announces at 10 o'clock that the vice president has been delayed. Let's start the funeral ceremony. And the vice president was supposed to be driven from Mzuzu to Nkatabe for at least some 35 minutes. The vice president's arrival time at Nkatabe should have been 11 o'clock, not earlier than that day. Yet an announcement was made at 10 o'clock that the vice president had been delayed even before the aircraft had crashed at 10:16. If you go to the PFU report, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, the aircraft is impacting the ground at 10:16. At 12:10, the pilots or the crew established their last contact with Mr. Moyo at Mzuzu. Yet, at 10 o'clock in Katabe, some official announces to the mourners there that the vice president has been delayed. Let's start the funeral ceremony. And it started. This is coming from the Commission of Inquiry report. The commission did not interrogate who had authorized the funeral service of late Raf Kasambara to start at 10 o'clock without the late vice president, who had been delegated by the president and who was scheduled to arrive in Mzuzu at 10:02. Furthermore, who advised the funeral gathering at 10 o'clock that the late vice president had been delayed. Yet the late vice president was scheduled to land at Mzuzu airport at 10:02. On the probable cause of the accident, the commission stated that from the evidence before the commission, the aircraft accidents are attributable. That's now general. It says aircraft accidents are generally attributable to three factors. 1, human factor. 2, environmental factors, including weather, and technical factors. This was merely a theoretical assessment of the aircraft accidents generally, not this particular accident. But that was the conclusion of the Commission of Inquiry, that it was either human factor, environmental factor, or technical factors, because generally aircraft have accidents on the basis of those three factors. Ultimately, the Commission concluded that the probable cause of the accident was a combination of environmental factors and human factors. Honorable Chair and members, you can see that at page 80 of the Commission of Inquiry report. It is clear that the Commission reached the above conclusions based on probabilities rather than cogent facts. It should be noted that while the Commission had taken note of the interim report by the BFU and its content, the Commission did not allude to the fact that at the time of publication of the interim report, BFU had not yet received the expert opinion from the German meteorological services provider, which BFU had asked to compile meteorological expert opinion concerning the weather conditions along the flight path and in particular in the area of the accident site. Furthermore, the interim report by the BFU did not make any findings as to the cause of the aircraft accident. More particularly, the interim report by the BFU did not attribute the aircraft accident to bad weather. Yet the Commission of Inquiry attributes it to weather and human error. On the activation of the search and rescue, the Commission had evidence that the search and rescue was activated at 17:01, which was exactly 4 hours from the time the aircraft had departed Kia. The search and rescue mission was activated at 17 minutes past 1, which is 4 hours after the flight, which was scheduled to fly for 45 minutes and land at 2 minutes past 10, had departed Kia. That's when you activate search and rescue mission. Where do you expect this airplane to be 4 hours after? The commission established that Malawi Air Force was notified of the missing aircraft almost immediately the aircraft would not be contacted via radio, and that the acting Air Force commander, Brigadier General Robre Ishmael, contacted the MDF commander and informed him of this information immediately. So the moment the MDF had no contact of their aircraft, it was escalated with the MDF ranks. However, the rescue and search and rescue mission is only activated 4 hours later. Notwithstanding the above evidence, the commission found that the MDF commander alerted the president at 11:35 hours that the vice president had gone to Mzuzu in the aircraft and that there was bad weather in Mzuzu. This was at 11:35 when the MDF commander contacted the president and informed him that the vice president has gone to Mzuzu, but that there's bad weather in Mzuzu. The commission further found that the president had understood the communication from the MDF commander as an alert to the effect that the aircraft was failing to land in Mzuzu due to bad weather and may be on its way back to Kia. So it would appear the commission is saying the president was informed by MDF commander that the plane is failing to land in Mzuzu, and in his imagination, the president understood that message to mean that the aircraft was flying back from Mzuzu back to Lilongwe because of bad weather. And this was at 11:35 hours. It appears that the commission's findings that the probable cause of the accident was bad weather and human factor was motivated by the above communication between the MDF commander and the president. That's my opinion. My opinion that the commission is insisting that the probable cause of the accident is bad weather, because the MDF commander at 11:35 is informing the president that the aircraft is failing to land because of bad weather, and the president thinks that it's coming back to Lilongwe. On the suspension of the search, the commission received evidence that the search and rescue mission on 10th June 2024 was very disjointed due to various factors, including lack of systemic and strategic approach to the search in Chikangawa forest, and lack of knowledge of what to do and where to start the search. The commission had evidence that at 22 hours on 10th June 2024, the Commissioner of Police North consulted other stakeholders and decided tactical pause in the search of the aircraft. The commission did not ask further questions as to the rationale for this called tactical pause in the search of the aircraft, which had carried the vice president of the country. At 10 o'clock in the night, there is what is called a tactical pause in the search and rescue. On the discovery of the aircraft wreckage on 11th June 2024, the commission heard that at around 9 o'clock, a team of the Air Force, including Colonel Mukokwe, arrived in Chikangawa to join the search. A team of senior police officers, including Commander of Police, Co-Commissioner of Police Atkins Mwanga, the head of operations at the National Police Headquarters, Deputy Commissioners of Police Mr. Mitai, Assistant Commissioner of Police Alex Cimenti, the officer in charge, Airport Police, decided to undertake supervision of the search teams. The police team was joined by the MDF team led by Second Lieutenant Odedi Mwenewanda, a platoon commander based at Kasitu camp. The commission heard that the first persons at the accident site were 4 senior police officers of the Malawi Police Service, 4 MDF soldiers, 2 sawyers, those who are cutting planks, 2 officers from Ntungwa Forest Office, and 2 unidentified persons. The commission did not identify the names of the first persons at the search site. It is strange that the commission accepted evidence which merely said that the first persons at the crash site were 4 senior police officers without identifying the names, 4 MDF soldiers without identifying the names, 2 sawyers without identifying the names, and 2 unidentified persons without identifying the names. The commission was not transparent regarding the identities of individuals who first saw the wreckage. The commission should have made every effort, in my opinion, to ascertain and disclose the names of the first persons to be at this crash site. It is therefore concerning, in my opinion, that individuals whose identities remain unknown to date were the ones who first saw the aircraft wreckage and dead bodies of the passengers and crew, including the late Vice President. It is also particularly concerning that the Commission merely stated that 2 sawyers and 2 unidentified persons to have been part of the first persons present at the accident site. Additionally, the Commission had evidence of gunshots in proximity to the crash site, but the Commission did not conduct any further interrogations as to the truth of these gunshots. On this point, it is clear that the Commission failed to conduct a rigorous investigation to determine whether these reported gunshots actually occurred or didn't occur. The issue is significant and must be further investigated. Furthermore, the Commission seems to have accepted the evidence of Colonel Kandulu and Colonel Mugdokwe regarding the plane not catching fire upon impact as an absolute truth. The Commission based its findings and conclusions on such testimonies. The Commission did not interrogate further the fact that the aircraft had fuel for about 4 hours and that at the time of impact, yet there is no evidence of the aircraft catching fire on impact or any spillage of jet fuel to the crash site, as if the fuel tanks were empty. These matters need further interrogations. The explanation accepted by the Commission that the plane's high wings prevented ignition is not convincing without further interrogation of this particular aspect in the report. The above analysis of the report of the Commission of Inquiry shows that the Commission of Inquiry was constrained in its scope of inquiry by the narrow terms of reference. As such, the report lacks necessary depth in the interrogation of certain aspects of the plane crash, and further, the report contains various inconsistencies, in my opinion, which must be reconciled. The above factors, therefore, justify further inquiry to be conducted by this committee into this plane crash that killed the late Vice President of Malawi and 8 others on 10th June 2024. With a wider scope and other possible connected issues, like the relationship between the late Ralph Kasambara, SC, and the circumstances of his death, of late Ralph Kasambara, SC, and the death of late Vice President, both of whom died within a space of 72 hours, back to back, in mysterious circumstances. It is also important to note that prior to the aircraft accident involving the military plane crash, military plane herein, the late Vice President had been discharged from corruption, a corruption case in the Financial Crimes Court, in which the MDF had vehemently resisted to release certain documents to the late Vice President, on the grounds that the documents sought by the Vice President to be released were sensitive documents bordering on national security. I thought this is a matter which this committee should also be aware of. And this plane belongs to MDF, the same MDF which was resisting to release evidence in the corruption case of late Saulos Chilima. It may be important to expand the scope of any further inquiry to the corruption case against the late Vice President and any possible connections to the documents which the MDF resisted to release to the late Vice President in connection with this aircraft accident. In view of the above analysis, the report of the Commission of Inquiry, in my opinion, was not conclusive on its inquiry into the aircraft accident involving the Malawi Air Force Donia 228, which crashed at Ntungwa in Kadabe on 10th June 2024. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, I also did analyze the final report of the BFU. I can summarize this one in very brief because of my findings, Honorable Chairperson, without going details of the facts. Honorable Chairperson, in my analysis of the final BFU report, it concluded, without receiving the meteorological report which they had requested from the German meteorological service provider. However, it accepted the evidence in the Commission of Inquiry report, which relied on the evidence of the people on the ground in Mzuzu and Chikangawa, that the weather was bad on the flight path. And the BFU therefore concluded that the aircraft accident was attributable to bad weather. You may recall, Honorable Chairperson and members, that in my findings of the analysis of the interim BFU report and the Commission of Inquiry report, I found the two reports to be wanting. However, the final BFU report relies heavily, in my opinion, on the findings and evidence accepted by the Commission of Inquiry for it to conclude its findings, instead of relying on the technical aspects of the flight, including the weather report from the German Meteorological Service, which they never by the time of the publication of the final report, the BFU had not received the German Meteorological report. For these reasons, Honorable Chairperson, I made the following recommendations to His Excellency, the State President. I did recommend, as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, to the President, His Excellency, the President, Professor Peter Mutharika, that if the President accepts my opinion and it pleases him, he may wish to exercise his powers under Section 2(1) of the Commission of Inquiry report Act of the Laws of Malawi to appoint a fresh inquiry into the aircraft accident involving the Malawi Air Force Donia 228 on 10th June 2024. I further recommended to His Excellency that the terms of reference for the fresh Commission of Inquiry may be widened to include other aspects which I noted, including conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances leading to the aircraft accident at Ntungwa in Chikangawa in Nkatabe and the death of late Vice President and 8 others on 10th June 2024. Conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances leading to the arrest of late Vice President and his subsequent discharge from his corruption case, which involved the MDF, and identify any linkages to the aircraft accident on 10th June 2024. Conduct a thorough investigation into the procurement of the Donia aircraft to carry the late Vice President and 8 others on 10th June 2024. Conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances leading to the death of Raf Kasambara on 7th June 2024 and identify any linkages to the death of late Vice President, if any, and 8 others on 10th June 2024. Conduct a thorough investigation into the procurement of the Donia to carry the remains of late Raf Kasambara, NCC, from Luntha to Mzuzu on 9th June 2024, and how the aircraft was handled after carrying the remains of late Raf Kasambara on 9th June, prior to carrying the late Vice President and 8 others on 10th June 2024. Those were the recommendations which I made to His Excellency the President. And when Parliament was sitting, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, when I answered the question under Order 69 of the your standing orders, I did summarize these findings to the August House, in which I informed your August House Parliament that His Excellency had decided that instead of a presidential inquiry, it must be a parliamentary inquiry. Hence, leading to your committee, ad hoc committee this morning, which is starting the inquiry this morning. I thank you very much for your attention. If there are any issues that you want me to raise, I'm available to respond to any questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, for your comprehensive report. And you took your time to elaborate on the gaps and inconsistencies and the irregularities that you noted. The members have been listening. You've raised a lot of questions. The members may want to seek further clarification so that we have the right answers. So I will open the floor to members to comment or seek any further clarification. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, if with your indulgence, I am prepared to leave one copy of the report to you, so that in case members want to read exactly what I've read, because I was just paraphrasing most of the issues, I'm prepared to leave my report, which I submitted to His Excellency the President, to inform him on his decision. Thank you, Chair.
Secretary can take that report, which we need for further purposes. I open the floor to members. We start here with Dedza Mayani.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, for allowing the people of Dedza Mayani to ask the Minister of Justice a few questions. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for your thorough report on how you had gone through all the reports and your recommendations, including the confidential report that you provided to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Malawi, Professor Peter Mutharika. I just wanted if you can confirm a few issues according to your presentation. The first issue, I just wanted to see your opinion on how you had understood the statement about the gunshots who had reported about the issue of gunshots. I'm trying to go back to the unidentified officials, such as the MDF officers, the Sawyers, and the two unidentified people. I wanted to see from your opinion if at all in any part of the report is trying to identify the one who gave the issue about the gunshots. That's the first one. The second one, Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, is from my, I know you are a lawyer, so you were using your legal language. I am a medical practitioner by profession. I'm a clinical officer. So sometimes I know when I'm speaking, I also say things which are medically technical in nature. And somebody asks me the question later on to say didn't understand. So understand my laymanship in this term of legal terms. You talked about two other reports, which were one given by MDF and the Civil Aviation Authority of Malawi. And you called them that they were private or whatever. So English and law and all that being something that are a bit far from me. I just wanted you to elaborate more on what you mean by that you had whether you had access or you had no access, and under what circumstances. So if my assumption is right, that you didn't see those other reports, because that was my interpretation on your statement. So you correct me if I'm wrong. If my opinion is right, I want to know if that private confidential report by MDF, which was sent to the Commander-in-Chief at that time of the MDF, is still available to the current Commander-in-Chief, who is Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, because of continuity of governance and state affairs. So you correct me on that one, or if the president said, I have that report, but I cannot give it to you because it was meant for the Commander-in-Chief. So I just wanted, Chair, if I could get that clarification. Otherwise, he was very elaborate enough, and we see why we are here. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Minister, you may take those two questions so that we can continue with the flow of questions.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Let me thank the people of Desert Mayani for their questions. I think there are two faults. The issue of the gunshot, as I read in the Commission of Inquiry report, and connected with that, the issue of the identified persons at the scene of the wreckage, the first group of persons that saw the wreckage. According to the report of the Commission of Inquiry, there are unidentified persons there. And then secondly, it's not about the legal language, probably it's the nature in which I presented, that I was not privy to two reports, that of the Civil Aviation and the MDF. And as a rider to that, the issue is whether, because of continuity, the current Commander-in-Chief has got the MDF report or not. Let me deal with the first issue of gunshots and identified persons. Honourable Chairperson, if you go through the Commission of Inquiry report, it is the one which introduces the possibility of gunshots around the vicinity of the wreckage. It's not Charles Muhango who is introducing that. It is in the report. What I'm saying is that my analysis of the report of Commission of Inquiry, when it comes to that aspect, it just glossed over of that whoever said it to the Commission, and the Commission didn't bother to dive deep and zoom in to this issue of possibility of gunshots around the vicinity of the area. It could be speculation, it could be somebody excited, I wouldn't know. But in my opinion, the Commission, having heard those sentiments from their witnesses, I had expected that the Commission should have looked into that and investigated further and come to a meaningful conclusion of those allegations. That's what I'm saying. And for that reason, I thought, as Minister of Justice, I should not gloss over having read that in the Commission of Inquiry report. So I'm handing it over to your ad hoc committee chair and your members. If you so wish, it pleases you, you can investigate further, depending on your terms of reference. When it comes to unidentified persons at the scene of the accident, quote unquote, or the first persons who had the wreckage. Mind you, if you go through the report and if you heard me right, I had said in the morning around 9 o'clock on 11th, that's when a group of senior police officers and MDF officers are taking over to lead the search around 9 o'clock. And within 2-3 hours, then the wreckage is found. The moment the senior police officers and MDF took over responsibility for the search, it was quickly, within 3 hours didn't last, the wreckage was found. But who finds the wreckage? You go to the Commission of Inquiry report, it will tell you titles of police officers, and it tells you titles of MDF officers. Then the artisans, the sawyers, 2 of them. And then 2, actually it says 2 unidentified persons. Honorable Chairperson, are we serious? You are dealing with the aircraft investigations, and you want to convince me, to convince the people of Malawi, that you are dealing with unidentified persons and the officers' titles who first saw the wreckage and dead bodies, not dead bodies of any simple person, a dead body of the vice president of the citizen number 2. And you don't want to identify the people who saw the dead body? What is the reason? That's what I was saying to you, Honorable Chair and members, that it was very concerning to me as Minister of Justice that we should be reading a commission which comes up with findings that there were unidentified persons on the scene. Yes, they are mentioning the titles there of the police officers, the titles of the MDF officers, and 2 sawyers. Are these 2 sawyers not having names? Why hide them? Apart from that, 2 unidentified persons. Who are these people? And you can read the Commission of Inquiry report through and through up to the end. They will not identify these 2 persons. Who are these people? What is the reason for hiding their identities? In my opinion, it is a matter of grave concern to the people of Malawi, not to Charles Muhango, but to the people of Malawi about that aspect. Let me turn to the second aspect of the question from Dezamayani, the people of Dezamayani, about the 2 reports. I did acknowledge, and I have acknowledged, Honorable Chairperson, that in my analysis, I did inquire so that I should have with me as much material as possible to inform me so that I should not mislead His Excellency the President. The duty of a minister is to advise the President. I know my duties under the Constitution. Therefore, I didn't want to mislead the President. I did every effort as minister at that time. Mind you, my report which I've just handed over, is dated 18th December 2025. It's not done today. It's dated 18th December 2025. By that time, I had concluded my findings in the limited time that I was given to advise the president. And in my efforts to come across material, I was informed that indeed there was a report by the Civil Aviation. I can say that I invited the Director General of Civil Aviation to my office, who said indeed there was a report, but it was confidential. Secondly, I attempted to reach out to the MDF at that point to get the MDF board of whatever they call it, the board for that report. I was not helped. I was being thrown from one person to another, one person to another. As a result, I am admitting that these two reports I never read. However, in my conclusions of the two technical reports by BFU and the Commission of Inquiry report, which I analyzed, these reports, my analysis and my opinions was not going to change because of the two reports which I never had access to. So I have not talked to His Excellency the President in terms of the continuity of government institution, whether he has got that report at his desk or not. We are talking today is 17th June 2026. I know that from 18th December 2025, when I issued my report, a lot of time has transpired. But I cannot come here and start talking about things which have transpired after I've already made the recommendation of the President. I thought I should stick to the issues which informed me at the time of advising the President, because those are the matters which informed the President to request this August House to impanel an ad hoc committee which you are chairing today. Therefore, matters which have transpired from January to today, I don't think they should be part of my recommendations which I made earlier on. So I will not comment on whether His Excellency the President has got the MDF report or is going to change his opinion. That one I can't tell. But it's up to you as a committee. If you want to have a look at that one, you can insist and call for that report and look at it side by side with your terms of reference. Thank you, sir.
Chair John Zimbai.
Thank you so much, Chair, for...
Chair what?
Chair Zimbai.
Mvai, okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chair, for granting us, the people of Zimbai constituency, to ask a question to the Right Honourable Minister of Justice. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister of Justice.
Good afternoon, Honourable.
I understand and appreciate that much have been said, but just in brief, I would like to know from you what led the government of Malawi to reconsider the findings of the previous investigations. Thank you, Right Honourable Minister.
We may take another question. Mwanza Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. You, in your recommendations, you have recommended to this committee that the inquiry should extend and look at the circumstances surrounding the death of the late Ralph Kasambala SC. You also extended that this committee should consider extending to delve into the circumstances surrounding the discharge of the case of the late Dr. Salos Klaus Chilima. I just want to find out from you, Honourable Minister, is it your opinion that this committee should be furnished with the documents that MDF was resisting to give to the defense team of the late SKC? Secondly, Is it your opinion, or rather, do you think it is also appropriate that this committee should also establish the relationship between the president, the former president, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, and the late vice president, Dr. Salos Klaus Chirima, prior to the tragic accident? Is it your opinion, or do you think it is something that can help this committee establish something? Because you have made recommendations that this committee should go beyond just looking at the circumstances surrounding the tragic accident, but look at other factors. Thank you very much, Chair.
You may take those two questions, and then we move to Longamudi, and then I'll come back to Nkadabe North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me thank the people of Nchewu Zones Muvai for their question. Let me also thank the people of Mwanza Central for their question. I don't take those questions lightly. In relation to the people of Nchewu Zones Muvai, the question was what informed the government to reconsider the previous reports and findings? In my report, which I've just submitted to you, I've said the following things, which I think I should say again. That the accident or the air crash took place on June 10th June 2024. It took the former president, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, 4 months to institute a commission of inquiry. And in that commission of inquiry, the then president gave the commission 30 days within which to conclude its findings and make its recommendations or its findings. I have also said in my report that there were elections, general elections, tripartite elections, on 16th September 2025, in which the Democratic Progressive Party, under the leadership of His Excellency Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, won the general elections on 16 September 2025. And on 4th October 2025, in the first address to the nation, His Excellency the President Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika told the nation of Malawi that once he constitutes his cabinet and he appoints his Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, he was directing that minister to review the reports and the circumstances surrounding the air crash on 10th June 2024. I'm not aware of what motivated His Excellency the President in his first address to direct his new Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to review, and I've not been told those reasons. However, I was directed, after being appointed Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, to undertake that assignment to review the circumstances and the reports surrounding the air crash that killed the late Vice President and 8 others at Ntungwa on 10th June 2024. So, to the people of Nchewu Zones Muvai, I just undertook the directive that the President gave me as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. I had no reason to start raising questions why Your Excellency are directing that I should be reviewing these things. As a lawyer, as a minister who is advising the President, I undertook the task, the directive, and I went to review the reports. And my review and analysis of the reports, the outcomes are the ones which I've just highlighted to this committee this morning and this afternoon, and to His Excellency, in which I recommended that my findings are that the reports that we have on the table at the moment do not bring closure to the accident that killed the late Vice President and eight others on 10th June 2024. And there's need for more interrogation into the circumstances surrounding that air crash on 10th June 2024. Turning to the people of Mwanza Central, basically, the people of Mwanza Central are asking about my further opinions. In that I have constantly referred to the death of late Raf Kasambara SC, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and I've also referred to the MDF case in which the late Vice President was answering corruption charges, and I've linked that one to the fact that the whole nation knows that the former Vice President, late Dr. Saulos Klaus Chilima, was discharged from that case when the MDF resisted to release the information or the documents which the former Vice President was asking for. In my opinion, I was of the view that if we are going to have closure and dig deep into the accident that involves the MDF aircraft, I was of the view, looking at the circumstances, the technical aspects that comes in the BFU report. One, the accident is happening when the aircraft is not being tracked by radar on those two trips from Mzuzu to Lilongwe and Lilongwe to Mzuzu. In my mind, I'm asking, what could have happened? What could have happened to the MDF aircraft for it not to be tracked on those particular trips, leading to the crash on the 10th June 2024? Would there be possible linkages to the matters which I've raised? I have said in my report, which I've just submitted to your committee, Honorable Chair, that the circumstances of the deaths, the two deaths, if I were to call them, of late Raf Kasambara on 7th June 2024, and the deaths of the former Vice President, late Dr. Saulos Klaus Chilima, and 8 others on 10th June 2024, are happening within a period of 72 hours or so. And both of them are unceremonious deaths. Would it not be proper for the nation of Malawi to know if there are any linkages between these two deaths? That was my opinion, and this is purely an opinion that Charles Mwangu holds. I don't know the terms of your reference, Honorable Chairperson, and your committee, if they will allow you to do that. If they don't, I wouldn't insist. But that was my opinion, and I didn't want to leave what I had recommended to His Excellency the President and what I was recommending for purposes of further investigation into the air crash that happened on 10th June 2025. So if you find out ask about my opinion, the people of Mwanza Central, that was my original opinion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Chair, there is one question that has not been responded to.
The one on the relationship.
Yes.
There's a question on the relationship.
Sorry, Chair, it was not deliberate. I wrote it on the other page. There was a question of should this committee, ad hoc committee, interrogate further in the relationship between the former vice president and the former president. That was not part of my findings. I did not go into that, and I don't want to go further into that. It was not part of my findings or my recommendations to His Excellency the President. So, Honorable Chair, I decline to comment on that one.
You proceed with, is it in Kadabe? No, it was Mulanje Modi. Sorry, Lulonge Modi. Then I said I would come back to Nkadabe North. In that order, please.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. And thank you, Honorable Minister, for your submission. I have several questions which I just want to get some verification. I need you to confirm. In your opening statement, Honorable Minister, you said you are not a witness of facts. However, in the submission, there are some facts that you have put forward to this committee. So I want some verification on those ones. So my first question, which I want you to verify because you brought it as a fact, are you sure, Honorable Minister, that when MDF and police officers took over the search and rescue, then the bodies were found 3 hours, within 3 hours they were found? That's what you said. So I want you to confirm to me that this is the fact that you hold. The second question is, when you were making these recommendations to the President and then they came to Parliament, did you make any attempt to verify some of the questions with technocrats? For example, civil aviation. And I'm bringing this question because of the two critical issues that you raised in your questions that you wish this committee to look into. The issue of radar tracking capability. You have raised a critical question that there was no radar tracking. Did you find out about the radar tracking capability that Malawi has so that that question could become a recommendation to the President? And the second one is on you raised actually a very critical question on the search and rescue, that it started 4 hours after. And you made an emphasis on that. And within your submission, you also mentioned that the aircraft had about 4 hours endurance on fuel. So was it a question that you still want us to look into it, that the aircraft had 4 hours fuel endurance, and then the search and rescue started after 4 hours? Because I think it was a question that you wanted this committee to look into, that it was delayed. To some extent, it was a delayed search and rescue. It took 4 hours. However, the aircraft also had 4 hours endurance of fuel. So is it something that you would, was it unsatisfactory to you that you wish the committee to look into? And the third question is on the issue of, you have given us an opinion on the connection between MDF, the corruption charges, and do you have any information that can help this committee
to investigate on this opinion that you have on the connection. So do you have any information that can help us on that one? And the fourth one is on I want you to also verify, because it was also a critical question you raised on the delegation on the 10th. Would you verify and confirm to the committee if indeed the president delegated to the vice president to go and attend on his behalf the funeral of late Kasambala? You mentioned that there was a delegation, so I want us to get those facts as well. The last one is on the heights. I think you mentioned in your first, when you were making your area submission on the initial, or in the initial report of BFU, you asked the committee to pay attention to the heights at which the aircraft was flying. What is your analysis of the heights that you would want this committee to look into? Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson.
I think there are 6 questions there. So maybe we can take another one from Nkatabe North so that you answer them at once.
Thank you, Chair. To give the people of Nkatabe North to ask only one question to the Minister. Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my question comes to your explanation about the 2 reports of MDF and aviation report that you haven't had a time to read them. So my question comes that these reports marked confidential, and what constitutional basis are they using that these reports are marked as confidential? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, you can take those questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and members of the committee. Without treating the last question as being simple, don't have that impression, the people of Nkatabe North. I will start with your question. Not that I'm underrating your question, but let me start with that question. Honorable Chair, let me thank the people of Nkatabe Central for their questions, the people of Lilongwe Moody, and the people of, I think that will be all. Thank you very much. Let me start with the Honorable Chair, let me start with Nkatabe North. My understanding of the law, there is a law that restricts testifying and giving evidence on matters of naval, civil aviation, especially the military, unless the president gives consent that people who are involved or are potential witnesses can testify on those matters. Let me also state, Honorable Chair, as I said when I started, that most of the things I was paraphrasing. That's why I've given my written report so that you can read word for word. That in my analysis of the 3 reports which I analyzed, I was informed by the various legal instruments that guided me. The Constitution of Malawi, the Commission of Inquiry Act, the Aviation Act, and the Convention on the International Civil Aviation, Convention on International Civil Aviation, and other legal instruments. I believe that the 2 reports the civil aviation report was issued because the aircraft, the Donia, was flying in the airspace of Malawi. However, you read in my report that this aircraft was a state aircraft. It was a military aircraft. And the law that I have come across, and I know, military aircraft or state aircrafts, what are called state aircrafts, are not subject to be regulated by civil aviation. However, they operate within the space controlled by civil aviation. That's why the civil aviation is issuing its report. Otherwise, this is a military aircraft, a state aircraft, which is subject to or regulated by other laws and not necessarily civil aviation regulations. I'm saying this deliberately to respond to Nkatabe North. Secondly, the MDF report, again, is talking, in my opinion, it's a report issued on their aircraft. And these are matters of naval and security. That's why it was marked confidential. At that point, I'm not sure if any of the people who issued the MDF report and the civil aviation report had ever requested consent from His Excellency the President, Dr. Arazdas Chakwera, to testify. Without the consent of the President of the country, no one is allowed to testify on matters of naval. That's the law that I understand. And I would want to advise this committee that should you wish to call for witnesses who are going to touch on matters of naval from the military, you must ask those people to request for consent from His Excellency the President under the law. In that framework, therefore, my thinking is that when state actors were resisting to provide the aviation report and the MDF report, they were trying to protect themselves, that they have got no consent, probably, from the state president to testify on those matters. Therefore, they would be exposed to criminal prosecution for testifying without the consent of the president. That's my understanding. As a result, Honorable Chairperson, I was not being reckless when I said I should not insist on these reports. I therefore proceeded only on the basis of the reports which I was privy to or which were given to me. I believe that that could be the reason why these two reports were marked, quote unquote, confidential, because of the law that regulates them and how those who issue those reports can testify on those matters by law. I hope that makes its area for clearer for Nkatabe North. Let me turn to the people of Lilongwe Mudi. Lilongwe Mudi had a mouthful of questions. Thank you for those questions. I hope I will be able to tackle them one by one. Some of them were subsets of the main question. The first one was I said that I'm not a witness of facts. Yet, according to the people, understanding of the people of Lilongwe Mudi, they believe that I'm stating facts. Yet I had said that I'm not a witness of facts. Let me confirm, Honorable Chair, that I'm not a witness of facts. I repeat that one, I'm not a witness of facts. However, any allusion to factual matters, I am at all times trying to quote the sources which lead me to those facts. And if you read my report, I'll be quoting pages of the various reports. I'm stating these facts on the basis of this page of the report. I'm stating these facts as a factual finding on the basis of these reports. So if wherever, Honorable Chair and members, wherever I alluded to factual matters, I'm supporting them, substantiating them with the factual findings either in the BFU or in the Commission of Inquiry report that I read. They are not facts which I can testify that I saw. I thought there should be that distinction. Whenever I'm saying, as a matter of fact, this is what happened, according to what I've read, it doesn't mean that I'm the one who saw the aircraft departing at 17 minutes or 16 minutes past 9 on 10 June 2024. It's a matter of fact which I've read, not that I saw the aircraft departing. Or when I say as a matter of fact, they say the police, senior police officers took over the lead of the search on 9 o'clock. And then at 11:35 that morning, on 11th June, they discovered the wreckage and the bodies. It doesn't mean that I was there and I saw them taking over. I'm referring to the facts as they have been found in the various reports which I'm analyzing. I hope, Chairperson, I should be very clear on those ones. I have got no intention of misleading this committee, and I had no intention of misleading His Excellency the President on the factual matters. The factual matters that I'm alluding to are the ones which I've extracted from the various reports. There was a question as to whether when making recommendations, I verified with the technical experts, especially civil aviation, especially on the issue of the radar capability in Malawi. I said, Honorable Chair, that the person that I talked to before I concluded my analysis, because of the technical aspect, was the then Director General of Civil Aviation. I called him to my office. We had if I go to back to my notes, I don't have the diary which I was writing that day with me here, but I had a detailed discussion with him so that I should understand the technical aspects. Because some of the things which I was reading in both the BFU report as well as the Commission of Inquiry reports, there are some technical things which I didn't know. So I had to verify, what does this mean? When you say AGL, what is AGL? When you say 20 nautical miles, what are those things? I had to understand before I advised the President. So I can confirm to you, people of Lilongwe Moody, that I attempted in my capacity as Minister of Justice, being a layperson in civil aviation matters and the naval technology, that I attempted to get to the experts who know these things. So I can verify that I attempted to seek the opinion of the expert and help of the expert for me to understand the technical aspects of these reports which I was reading. As to the truth about the Hyats, these ones you can get from the BFU report. That's why I said, the Honorable Chair, when I started, that the ones that I'm going to go into detail in terms of factual background is the BFU. And I never went into the factual background in the other reports, but I insisted on the BFU. It's the BFU which can give you a picture of exactly what was happening, because they're using the GPS to track the movement of the aircraft once it departed up to the point of impact. As a result, I can only verify the Hyats. For me, as a layperson, in my opinion, these Hyats were not making sense. Because at one point you find that the aircraft, for example, Honorable Chair, the aircraft is recommended to fly at around 7,000. For whatever reasons, I have got no idea. You can read for yourselves in the report which I've submitted. It starts changing the heights, fluctuating as high as 8,600 feet above sea level. It goes down as low as 5,300 in terms of AGL, which is above ground level. Above ground level, it goes as low as 185 feet above ground level, which is, in my opinion, in my little understanding of heights, is just too close to the ground. And it doesn't make sense to me why a crew would be embarking on those maneuvers. And I said, in my opinion, that the Commission of Inquiry should have delved deeper in those kind of maneuvers and try to understand why could the crew be embarking those maneuvers. When it comes to search and rescue, yes, I have referred to certain time frames that the search and rescue started about 4 hours after departure. Mind you, these facts, honorable members for Lilongwe Moody, they are not facts that I am creating. They are facts which are in the Commission of Inquiry report. It's very detailed in terms of the search and rescue. The BFU report does not really talk much about the search and rescue. It's the Commission of Inquiry report which details the launch, initiation, and closure of the search and rescue mission. And it says that the search and rescue started around 11:35. Or if my facts are correct, since I've handed over the report, but from my reading, it starts about 4 hours after the aircraft has departed. I'm insisting on that one. The search and rescue is starting 4 hours after the aircraft has departed. Yet, that aircraft, according to what I've read, had endurance for fuel for about 4 hours only, not more than that. Whoever was in control at that time, whoever was making these decisions at any level, where did they expect this aircraft to be? To be in the air? Are you sure it should be in the air 4 hours, yet it had the fuel endurance for 4 hours? Those are the questions which I'm raising. That when the Commission of Inquiry was making its investigations, in interrogating the witnesses, I believe that they should have gone deeper to understand these aspects of this accident, of this crash, and not just gloss over certain factors or certain facts. There was a question about the opinion on the MDF and you called the corruption charges and the any information that I may have as Minister of Justice. I believe that any Malawian who was alert to the matters which were happening surrounding the first Vice President, late Saros Chilima, in terms of his corruption cases at the Criminal Division of the High Court of Malawi, will be very much aware of what happened there. One, that he had corruption charges against him, and in his defense, these are public records. You can go to the case and find out. The judiciary will give you those kind of records leading to the discharge by Justice Redson Kapindo. That in his defense, the late Vice President said, I can't defend myself unless you give me documents from the MDF. And the MDF was saying, we cannot give you these things. These are matters of national security. And the case had ended up in a discharge. In my opinion, I'm saying, what could be the connection between that tug of war which took place there and the fact that subsequently the Vice President dies with his entourage in an MDF aircraft? As a Malawian, I'm concerned. I thought that the Commission of Inquiry, any sensible Commission of Inquiry, should be able to be alert to those facts and deal with them conclusively. In the question of delegation, the delegation that happened on the, you honorable member for Lilongwe Mudi and your constituents, you need to take time to go to the Commission of Inquiry report on the delegation. It's very detailed. There was a bit of confusion. There was a bit of confusion if you read the report as to who was going to represent the former president, Dr. Lazarus McArthur Chakwera, at the funeral of Late Raf Kasambara. Mind you, the vice president had just arrived from a foreign trip, was in South Korea, somewhere there. You go through the report, and there was a bit of confusion until late in the night, if not in the morning on the 10th, when it was resolved. I think the then SPC testified to the Commission of Inquiry on the delegation. Pay particular attention to what the then SPC, Madam Colleen Zamba, said to the Commission on the delegation. At first, the impression given was the vice president, and from the party structures in MCP, they thought it was the vice president for the party, not the vice president of the country. You see, you read it very clear there. And then later on, it was clarified that no. His Excellency wants the vice president of the country, not the vice president of the party, which was then, I think, Honorable Harem Kandavile or somebody else in the north. Is that okay? So there's that kind of, but conclusively, the report of the Commission of Inquiry concluded that actually the senior government official delegated by His Excellency the President finally was the Vice President. And because of that, there was a directive that the aircraft should come from Zuzu and pick him from here with his entourage to go to Katabe to represent. So in my finding of in my analysis of the report, the mourners on 10th June 2024 at Nkatabe, they were waiting for the state vice president to be the delegate of His Excellency, the former president, at that funeral. Nobody else. And I am saying that if you look at the delegation and what happens at 10 o'clock at Nkatabe, then you raise questions. You are expecting the whole vice president of the country, who is representing the president, at this funeral, who is supposed to arrive in Mzuzu at Mzuzu airport at 2 minutes past 10. And is supposed to drive from Mzuzu to Nkatabe, a minimum, in my opinion, of 35 minutes. Why should somebody at that funeral, a senior government official, whoever it was, telling the mourners at 10 o'clock that the vice president has been delayed? Therefore, let's start this funeral ceremony. To me, Honorable Chair, it doesn't make sense on the delegation aspect. Therefore, I'm saying investigate further. What could have happened? Mind you, if you go to the BFU report, interim as well as the final report, the aircraft is impacting the ground at 16 minutes past 10. Yet at 10 o'clock, somebody has already declared that the president will not arrive. The vice president will not arrive. Let's start this funeral. This is coming from the Commission of Inquiry report, nowhere else. And as Minister of Justice, you want me to have a look at that and gloss over it? I don't think so. So in terms of delegation, the people of Lilongwe Mudi, that's why I came to the conclusion and recommendation to His Excellency the President that these are matters which should be investigated further. I think I've already commented.
Honourable Minister, I think you've
thank you very much.
Attempted to answer most of the questions.
Thank you.
And the Chair, I just want to confirm that I've read all the reports as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I think what the Honourable Minister has done is to raise issues that need our verification. He's bringing the issues to us as a committee, that as we are investigating this matter, carrying out a fresh inquiry, we must look into these facts. Some of them are opinions, some are facts from the reports that were made, but it's up to us to verify those. Okay? So I think it's something worth considering. I'm tempted to close because we don't have much time, but I'll ask Doa Kasangazi to comment.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving the people of Doa Kasangazi a chance to ask the Honorable Minister here some questions. But before I ask my questions, Honorable Chair, I have two important declarations to make. Number one, I know the Honorable Minister here as one of my former lecturers in law at Chancellor College and Dean of Law. And the second declaration that I would like to make, Honorable Chair, is that on the 10th day of June 2024, I attended the funeral of the late Raf Kasambala SC as my professional colleague and mentor in Katabe. I have two questions to put to the Honorable Minister. But before that, I have a supplementary question to the question that was asked by Lilongwe Mude regarding the wait to start the search and rescue mission of 4 hours. Honorable Minister, since the plane had fuel endurance of 4 hours from the time it departed, was it not justifiable that the decision makers should wait until those 4 hours elapse before they could start the rescue mission? That's the first question. The second question in your presentation, and I think you have repeated when you were answering questions, you made mention of the fact that there is a part in the Commission of Inquiry report which indicates that the funeral ceremony of the late Raf Kasambala commenced exactly at 10 a.m. I would like to request you, Honorable Minister, to indicate to us which part of that report has that information and which official, was it the Roman Catholic official or the government official who directed that the funeral ceremony should commence? The last question that I have for you, Honorable Minister, is regarding the mandate of this committee. If my memory serves me right, it is you, Honorable Minister, who moved the National Assembly to pass a resolution that gave birth to this committee. And if you remember correctly, you will notice that the mandate that this committee was given does not cover the death of the former Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, Honorable Raf Kasambala SC. Are you of the view that you are going to go back to the National Assembly and move it to amend the mandate that this committee was given so that it covers the death of Honorable Kasambala SC? Thank you very much.
Kasungu North, and then we call it a day.
Thank you so much, Chair, for giving the chance to the people of Kasungu North to ask a question. My question is very simple. The Minister, Honorable Minister, you talked about the gunshot. May you please help us, maybe giving us, this committee, the name of the person, the witness that said that there were some gunshots. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, you can take those two questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and the Honorable Members. Let me thank the people of Doa Kasangazi and the people of Kasungu North for their invaluable questions. Let me start with the Kasungu North. As I said, I will repeat, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members of the committee, that I'm not a witness of facts. Whatever I have related to you are matters which I've extracted from the 3 reports which I looked at. I therefore invite all members to take time to have a look at my report which I've just submitted this morning. It will be very detailed. Wherever possible, cite the exact pages where I extract the matters which I've relayed to this committee. I said I've got my 3 reports with my notes. I don't believe I have the time enough to start going back to those ones and search where my notes are. But if you go to my report, which I've just given you, Honorable Chair and members of the committee, there will be relevant pages where I extracted the particular matters which I've related to. Therefore, when it comes to the issues of gunshot, what I read from the Commission of Inquiry report, it acknowledged that some witnesses alluded to or mentioned that there were gunshots. Simple. It never went further to investigate those matters. And when I read it, Honorable Chair, in my opinion, I thought that those are matters which the Commission of Inquiry should not have just have glossed over. They should have gone deeper to identify those people and probably question them further. And that's what motivated me to allude to that in my written report to His Excellency the President. So I don't have to be put at the corner, Honorable Chair, to identify witnesses because I don't have any. It's a matter which, if the committee wants to pursue further, it can pursue further. Let me go to the people of Doa Kasangazi. Let me start by acknowledging the matters which, the prefacing matters, which the honorable member informed the committee that indeed I was his lecturer and I was his dean of law. That notwithstanding, let me thank the people of Doa Kasangazi for the very important questions. It is very possible that it was justifiable that the government officials should wait for 4 hours before commencing the search and rescue on the basis that the plane had 4 hours endurance. It is justifiable. However, the question that I was raising and I've raised in my recommendations are that after 4 hours, where do you expect this aircraft to be? Where do you expect this aircraft to be? I thought that those are matters which the Commission of Inquiry should have looked at deeply. So I may agree with the people of Doa Kasangazi that yes, it was justifiable. Since the aircraft had 4 hours fuel, why not wait until the 4 hours last before you go on the ground and searching? Because otherwise it would be in the air. Probably it's justifiable. But in my opinion, Honorable Chair, I think the moment the aircraft does not land at the point of expected landing time, that should have triggered a sense of urgency. It's carrying the vice president of the country. It has not landed. Do you really want to wait without triggering search and rescue? Those are questions which were bothering me in my mind as your Minister of Justice. Yes, I agree with the people of Doa Kasangazi that indeed I moved Parliament when I was asked under Standing Order 69. But when I moved the Parliament under Standing Order 69, it was upon getting the feedback from His Excellency the President on my report. His Excellency the President had made 2 directions. Number 1, that he agreed with me that a fresh inquiry should be conducted. Secondly, that this fresh inquiry should not be a presidential, by way of a presidential commission. It should be by a parliamentary commission of inquiry. Those were the two directives. On terms of reference to be agreed upon or to be agreed upon by the committee. I am not here to change the course of direction that your committee, Honorable Chair, has taken. But since I was presenting the report as I did on 18th December 2025, I didn't want your committee to be surprised when reading my report that in there I had other issues which I raised. So I was trying to be as candid and as open as possible as Minister of Justice, that you will find in my report some recommendations which may not be consistent with your terms of reference. And when I'm presenting those ones, it doesn't mean that I have any intention of going back to Parliament and to move the Parliament to amend its terms of reference. That's not my intention. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
So I will take one question from Luntha, Malabade, Nyambadwe, Nirande, and then a last one from the Vice Chair, Zomba City South.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. My question
is that
is Luntha Malabade constituency.
Malabade.
That's correct. My question references what the minister said. He had sought access to the reports from the MDF as well as the civil aviation. And he also mentioned that legally the MDF and the civil aviation were not at liberty to hand over those reports. However, he also mentioned that the president, if given the consent, would compel the MDF as well as the civil aviation to surrender those reports. I would like to find out from the minister why he did not take that route to seek consent from the president, as well as being a lawyer, why did you not go before the courts to compel the MDF as well as the civil aviation to surrender those reports? Thank you.
Zomba City South.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I should also thank the Honorable Minister of Justice for presenting so thoroughly. And I think you have taken away, if there are any doubts or misunderstandings as to why the committee is here out there, people I think are now clear why the committee is here. Chairperson, I just wanted the Honorable Minister to just, being a Minister of Justice, and the late Ralph Kasambara being also former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, if the Honorable Minister could be kind enough to inform you, Chair, and the committee, if within the privileges of the Minister of Justice, provision of estate craft, in the case of a funeral, is also part of the privileges. Chair, I submit.
Honorable Minister, you can take those two last questions and then we'll wind up.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. Let me thank the people of Luntha Malabade for their question, as well as to thank the people of Zomba City South for their question. I don't take these questions lightly, Honorable Chair. Let me start with the people of Malabade. Yes, I do agree that, in my opinion, I attempted to access the reports, or my efforts rather, I attempted to access the reports, but I was also aware of the nature of the reports, even though I've not seen those reports. And quickly I accepted in my mind as a lawyer that the people if they were resisting at all, they could be justified because they would risk criminal sanctions if they did not have permission or what I would call consent under the law to testify on those matters by the president. The question as to why as minister I did not ask the president for consent, or extending further, why I did not take the efforts to go to court and probably ask the court for permission to access those reports. Honorable Chair, when you are undertaking matters as directed by the president as minister, I think it would be extending the argument too far if a minister starts being militant and going to court, seeking court's intervention for performing duties for a minister. I didn't see it wise, because my duty was to review the circumstances and make recommendations. And I was not an inquirer. I think I should repeat that one. I did not believe that when the president, His Excellency the President, tasked me or directed me to review the various reports or matters surrounding the plane crash on 10th June 2024, then I became an inquirer. I became a commission. I became an adjudicator who should be calling witnesses, who should seek consent from the president to testify before me. I should not give that impression to this committee that I have those kind of powers. And up to now, I don't have those powers. However, Honorable Chairperson and your committee, you as an inquirer have got those powers. You can go to the respective potential witnesses on matters of naval, and if you want them to testify, your committee can ask them to seek consent from the president because you want to hear their side of the story. On the other hand, as Minister of Justice, being tasked to review matters surrounding the airplane crash on 10th June 2024, I don't believe, and I still don't believe, I had those powers to request for consent or indeed to behave as if I was an inquirer. Therefore, I was satisfied with what I read and what I analyzed. And I believed, and I've said it in my report, that whatever material I didn't have would not have changed my opinion on these three reports. And I insist today, it will not change my opinion on those reports and my recommendation. Thank you very much, Chair. Zomba City South asked, I think, on the state protocol for according state funeral to a minister or former minister or indeed Attorney General. Let me say that when you go to the report of the Commission of Inquiry, Honorable Chairperson and your members, you will see a detailed discussion on why the government that time resolved that Honorable Raf Kasambara should receive state funeral. According to my understanding, my reading of the report, it was necessary to do that because late Raf Kasambara had been convicted of attempted murder and his appeal had not yet been resolved. Therefore, he had on his head a live conviction. That's why they went into that discussion as to whether to accord him state funeral or not. And the government then resolved that nevertheless, let's accord him a state funeral. Otherwise, my understanding of the state protocol for state funeral are that any former minister of the government of Malawi is entitled to a state funeral. But for this not Attorney General, but former minister. And the Honorable late Ralph Kasambara had served in both capacities, as the Minister of Justice as well as the Attorney General, and combined both positions of Attorney General and Minister of Justice at one point. Therefore, minus the conviction in the criminal case that he had, he was entitled to state funeral. But because of the conviction, probably that's why the government went into a discussion and finally resolved that he should be accorded state funeral. I believe that's what you're going to find in the Commission of Inquiry report. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. If there's any question which I didn't answer, remind me so that I should deal with this.
And Constitutional Affairs, I think you've taken time to respond to all the questions that we raised with you. We've had an extensive discussion, examination with you, which has been very informative. You've raised a lot of proposals and recommendations to the committee. We will digest, those recommendations that have been made for consideration. Very good points you have raised, eye-openers. And some of us didn't know some of those insights, so it was worth having you as our first witness. Right? And we look forward to continued collaboration on this journey. And you may take leave, and I know you must be thirsty by now. You didn't touch your bottle of water. Yeah, but pleasure, listening to you, the wisdom that you've got. You may have a final comments you want to make before you take leave.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I said, sitting here, I didn't even know how time flew behind me. I didn't even know that in front of me there was a pot of water. I'm seeing it now because you've mentioned it. It only tells you, Honorable Chair, and your committee the intensity with which you engaged me. And I hope that you will continue with the same kind of intensity, focus, and the resolution to come to the conclusion of the matters so that the nation of Malawi can come to a closure of this matter. Let me say clearly here and probably declare my interest as well that I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer by profession, and that in my recommendations, in my statement, I have tackled issues which involved a former lawyer and a former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, late Ralph Kasambara. Let me say clearly that I was not motivated by any personal connections to anybody in this matter. I thought I should say that clearly to your committee, Honorable Chair, and to everybody, that in my analysis, I did the analysis as the Minister of Justice, as having taken an oath to advise the President of this country. Thank you very much, Chair. Otherwise, I thank you very much for your consideration and inviting me. I hope the information I've given will help your committee moving forward from here onwards. Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for the bottle of water.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your valuable advice once again and insights that you have shared. You've given us a lot of homework and food for thought. So, it's something that we will ponder and look into. So, as I said, it was worth your time. You may take leave.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Luntha Television, bringing wisdom into your home. Luntha Television, bringing wisdom into your home.
Chikangawa, the Minister of
Luntha Television, bringing wisdom into your home. Luntha Television, bringing wisdom into your home.
Announcement: transition to cashless ticketing. Malawi Airlines would like to inform all valued customers that effective 1st May, all ticket purchases will be conducted exclusively through cashless transactions. As part of this transition, payment will be accepted via bank transfers and POS machines for various banks available at our offices. This measure is designed to streamline our processes, reduce transaction times, and ensure a safer, more secure way of completing bookings. Cashless ticketing will complement our existing online booking platforms, our website, and our mobile application while aligning with global aviation practices that embrace digital payment solutions. We encourage all customers to prepare for this change by making use of the available electronic payment facilities. Our sales and airport staff will be available to guide and assist customers during this transition. For further assistance, please contact our customer service team via customerrelations@malawianairlines.com or call our support line. We remain committed to serving you with dignity, efficiency, and care as we embrace this new chapter. This announcement is brought to you by Malawi Airlines Management.
Malawi Airlines, from the warm heart of Africa.
Service Charter ndi ndondomeko yomwe nthambi za boma zikugwiritsa ntchito potumikira anthu ndi cholinga chotukula ntchito za ulimi kuti alimi akhale ndi upangiri okwanira, za maphunziro kuti ophunzira alandire maphunziro oyenera, zosamalira chilengedwe kuti anthu apewe mchitidwe wodzetsa kusintha kwa nyengo, za umoyo kuti anthu alandire thandizo la kuchipatala moyenera komanso mu nthawi yache, za chitetezo kuti anthu athandizidwe ndi apolisi mopanda chinyengo, kusamalira ovutika kuti angathe kudziyimira pawokha ndi kutenga nawo mbali pa chitukuko ndinso ntchito za madzi kuti anthu akhale ndi madzi aukhondo ndi kupewa matenda. Ndondomekoyi ithandiza kuonetsetsa kuti anthu akutumikiridwa mosapsinja maufulu awo kuti miyoyo yawo itukuke. Pitani kuti mukadziwe zambiri za mmene ndondomekozi zimagwirira ntchito.
Uthengawu akukupatsirani da Human Rights Resource Center mogwirizana ndi makhonsolo a Dowa, Mchisi ndi Nsanje ndi thandizo lochokera ku Norwegian Church Aid